Hey guys, Ron Parks here and welcome back to the channel. This will be a longer video than usual as I want to discuss how to go about buying your first investment property step by step. Buying an investment piece of property, especially your first time, takes a lot of thought, research, and planning. I'll go over all the steps to follow so you can put an offer down on a great 2 or 3 unit multifamily building and start your way to passive income. I'll go through all of the steps, so take a pen and a piece of paper and make notes as you need to. I also will have outlined all of the steps in the comments below, so you can use that as a reference and a resource. Okay, number 1, to buy a multifamily house or any house, you need a down payment. The first thing you need to consider is how much of a down payment you might need to get the ball rolling with any real estate purchase. If you pay all cash, you can skip this, but most investors don't pay 100% cash. They get a loan to leverage their money. And one of the highest hurdles is to pull together the money for the down payment. Banks usually like to see 20 or 30% of the purchase price for a down payment on a multifamily building. So if you're buying a $500,000 2-unit building, you'll need anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 to get the ball rolling. Now, if you were buying a single-family residence, you probably could get away with almost a zero down payment if you got a VA or a FHA loan, or 10% down. Under those scenarios, you would need to buy PMI, which is private mortgage insurance, and that will add a significant bill to the amount you pay every month. Multifamily real estate is not like buying a single-family home. Lenders look at what you are going to do with the building. Are you going to rent out all the units? Will you be living in one and renting out the rest? We'll discuss cash flows, so keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, if you don't have a down payment, then stop right now and start building up that reserve, because you cannot buy anything without a down payment. So don't get frustrated. Just get started. I have several videos on how to save money, and I'll leave the link below. Okay, number 2, get your credit score in order. To get a reasonable rate on loans, you need to have a good credit score. That means that you want a credit score of at least 760 to get the best rate. Now, the lower your credit score, the less inclined the lender will be to make the loan, as they look at your credit score as an indication of your ability to repay your debts. A low credit score means you have been either late on payments, an account went into collection, or you filed bankruptcy in the past. Now, there are many videos online as how to improve your credit score, and I have one also which I'll link below. So I would watch one or a lot of those and start the work on getting your credit score repaired. You can do it in 4 to 6 months, so start now. And the best way to keep your credit score high is to pay your balances in full at the end of the month, which is the fastest and surest way to increase your score. Another way is to start paying down some of your more considerable debts and work consistently to bring those down. Okay, number 3, got to get a loan. So speak to a mortgage broker or a lender to get pre-approved. Now, there are several ways to get a loan. One is through a mortgage broker that has access to many lenders. And using a good mortgage broker can streamline the process for you, as they have access to many highly regarded lenders. And you can get rates and fees from all of them that participate with the broker. Or you can go to your local bank that you do business with and see what their rates are. But sometimes it's good to have someone working on your behalf that's impartial, and that's what a mortgage broker can do for you. Now, also keep in mind that banks have distressed properties in their portfolios that result when a borrower either defaults on loan payments or can no longer make the payments. Now, there are 3 kinds of properties in this category. Distressed properties are where the borrower cannot continue to make the payments and the mortgage is close to being in default. A property is in default where the owner is 90 days or more late on the loan, and banks consider this a non-performing asset, and most of them want to sell the note to an investor who will put the house in foreclosure. Now, foreclosures are where the lender has already foreclosed on the property. The property is then considered an REO, which is a real estate owned by the bank, and will usually put these on the market with a local real estate professional. And if you're lucky enough to buy a property that already went into foreclosure, you'll have much less risk, as you'll get a fee simple interest in your property, free and clear of liens and other claims. You can also try to get in touch with the owner that is late on payments. You can try and negotiate a short sale with the owner. You can make an offer and negotiate with the bank to sell the house. and the bank takes a loss, but they're free and clear of the debt. Okay, so we've gone through, pull your deposit together, fix up your credit score, speak to a mortgage broker or a bank, and number 4, you need to pull together all of your financial information, tax returns, and a lot of other stuff. You usually want to see 2 to 3 years of tax returns to verify your income. They'll also ask for your latest paycheck stub as well as your W-2 from your company. Now, if you're self-employed and need to pull the tax returns together, you might have an issue because many self-employed individuals write off lots of business expenses. So even though they might have high income, when you take all of these deductions, their final net income number can be low or negative. So if you have a business where you file a Schedule A, which is self-employment, or an LLC, you should plan for your purchase. That means you might not want to use all of the business expense deductions you have, even though you'll have to pay a little more in taxes that year. Losses on a self-employment basis sometimes are really challenging to overcome when reviewed by a lender. Okay, number 5, get the best real estate agent you can. Now, to locate extraordinary properties, you need to do things that the average investor won't consider. You want to unearth opportunities that are not readily apparent to your competition by conducting an exhaustive and thorough investigation of your target area. Now, using only one real estate professional sometimes is the way to go, but I like to contact a lot of brokers who specialize in multifamily housing in my area. And if you set the criteria on what you're looking for, you can have many brokers calling you with lots of opportunities and leads. And a great way to get these people on board, if you're not going with a solo agent, is to work out a deal to give the agent the listing when you decide to sell the building. If they do an excellent job for you, you can return the favor and just continue using them. Lots of agents are really not thrilled when you work with more than one agent, but most of them will be happy to send you listings with the opportunity to do the deal. Okay, number 6. Now this is the most fun. Identify your properties. I usually outline the city areas that I'm interested in on a map and use those in coordination with the real estate agent. Now, you should be able to do some of this research on your own, and the agent is also doing lots of legwork. So in addition to using Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, and Realtor.com to search for homes, your agent should also set you up on their MLS so you can go directly online and search for properties on your own. Now, I've sent out letters to owners of buildings that look interesting to me to increase the pool of options. And once you find something you like, the agent can do more of the legwork and get the information you need to make a decision. Because the information you'll need will vary based upon the property and the location. But here are some of the basic pieces of information you'll want to have. You want to see financial statements from the owner showing the rental income and all the property's expenses. They should provide you a rent roll, including all of the tenants' information, how long they've been there, and when the lease is up, and all of the lease terms. You want to see copies of all the leases also as part of your review. You want to also obtain all of the disclosures that outline the state of the property. In California, for example, if you buy 1 to 4 units, the owner must fill out lots of disclosure forms to tell you about everything they know that's wrong with the house and the building. In California, if you buy up to 1 to 4 units, the owner must fill out lots of disclosure forms to tell you about everything they know that's wrong with the building and things that broke but were subsequently fixed. You'll need these to determine where the numbers will pencil out for you and what improvements you might have to make on the property before renting the units out. You'll also want to know if any negative aspects of the house and the property would affect the value or rental income. Now, some of those could be being on a noisy street, across or behind a school, or near a freeway. Now, all of these issues affect the value of the property. Now, I won't consider properties with any of these shortfalls, as there are plenty of other properties around that won't have these issues. When you start identifying properties, you can look for those that have already been renovated and those that maybe need updating. You'll always usually be better off if you could find some properties that need some tender loving care, even if they are rented once and you make the improvements to the units. You'll always usually be better off if you can find some properties that need some TLC, tender loving care, even if they're already rented, because once you make the improvements to the units, you can start raising the rent to conform to the improvements you made. And when tenants move out, you're good to go to charge whatever the rent market will bear. But keep in mind that many communities have strong tenant rights. Sweat equity is an excellent opportunity to increase the value of the property immediately. You do some of the work, get some help from others, and increase the rents. That is the game with properties that have deferred maintenance or are in original condition. And sometimes the owner has owned the property for a really long time, paid very little for it, and is enjoying the cash flow without having to do any upgrades. And from my experience, I can tell you the best way to get your rents higher is to improve the property. Now we go on to number 7. Put together pro forma financial information. Now, pro forma means projected financial information, so you can check to see what profit or loss you might have on the building. Well, the value of a property is based upon the return rate. A very high percentage of properties just don't make sense to purchase for an investment. They lose money and are not cash flow positive. It's also the reality that everything makes an excellent investment at a specific price point. So it's essential to understand these numbers. Now, there are many spreadsheets you can use to calculate the property's cash flows. What you need to know is the following. What is the monthly rent currently, and what might you expect them to be after you own the building? You need to put an estimate in for vacancies, so take into account that you'll have a vacancy here and there, and you need to include the lost revenue in your calculations. You want to pull together all the expenses on the building, including property taxes, insurance, garbage, and water. So if you have separate electrical meters for every unit, your tenant will be responsible for that amount. And then you want to budget for capital improvements. So make a list of everything you might have to do to the building to get it up and running. Your inspection should give you a clear idea if any systems have failed and how much it will cost to replace. So suppose you're going to do some renovations. Well, in that case, it's imperative to look at these renovations in conjunction with the amount of rent you can demand once the units are rehabilitated. Now, number 8, start making offers. This is a lot of fun. You'll have to make lots of offers to get one accepted. Now, you can only decide on an offer price once you figure out the rents you might be able to get after some renovations, and also looking at the expenses of the building. Well, Craigslist, Zillow, Trulia have a lot of rental information about what rents are going for in your neighborhood. So evaluating a property's location and appeal to a prospective tenant will help you determine whether you could have problems filling vacancies. And an easy way to understand the property location's impact is to look on Craigslist for rentals in the area and see what they are going for. You can also call the number on the ad and ask the owner or the agent how long it's been on the market and whether or not they're getting a lot of applications. And there also are several websites that can give you some independent feedback on ratings of apartments. Now, you can go on to apartmentrating.com or apartmentreviews.com and see if the building you're interested in has some reviews. One of the most important things to look for is the rent control laws in your city. When I lived in San Francisco, it became really clear that tenant rights had priority over landlord rights. In San Francisco, it's very tough to get rid of a tenant unless they want to move. You should be aware of these rules, especially if you decide to improve the property where there are already tenants. First, you might not be able to raise the rent more than a certain percentage due to rent control. And secondly, if you want to get tenants out to redo the units, it can cost you an arm and a leg. I always prefer to get a building that does not have any tenants in place so you can start from scratch. If you buy a fully renovated building, then having tenants in place could be a great long-term opportunity, as they will pay market rents. Now, if they're not paying market rents, it will be difficult to increase rents and build value unless you can get a whole new crop of tenants. And if you select a building that needs improvements, try to have all of the tenants out so the renovations can be done quickly and efficiently, and you can re-rent the units at a highest rent you can based upon what the market is. Now, to tell if you want to buy the building, we go on to number 9, which is inspections. Now, you as a buyer are responsible for all inspections. Now, you have to inspect the property to decide if you're going through with the purchase. So on a 2 or 3 unit building, the owner will usually allow 15 to 45 days to get all of the reports and inspections you need. The owner doesn't want to freak out the tenants and let them know that the building's for sale. So they usually will only allow inspections when they have an accepted offer. And the most significant components of inspections, which are very expensive to repair, include the following. So here are the basic inspections you definitely should have. A roof inspection. It could be really expensive to replace a roof, depending on the type, and you want to know upfront how much it's going to cost. And then we have structural and foundation issues. If there are structural issues with the building or foundation issues, these can be a deal killer. I would have an engineer take a look at the building to make sure you're really clear on what's happening, because redoing a foundation or doing systemic work on the infrastructure of a building is very, very expensive. And these are things you don't see, not like putting a new kitchen in or a new bathroom in. You also want to have an inspection of the HVAC with the heating and air conditioning systems. So if air conditioning or heating units are old, then you'll have to replace them. So you should budget for these capital improvements. You also want to get a plumber to look at the plumbing, because having to replumb a whole house, especially 3 or 4 units, is going to be expensive. And then we come down to the last piece, which are environmental hazards. Properties built before 1978 are likely to contain lead concentrations in the paint unless the property was renovated or the lead paint was removed or encapsulated. And another significant issue is asbestos. This substance was used to insulate buildings before 1972. And since then, scientists have found out that breathing the fibers can cause lung cancer and other diseases. And another interesting fact is that if you see any 9 by 9 inch tiles on the floors of properties, there's a strong likelihood that they contain asbestos, because these tiles will replace with non-asbestos 12 by 12 tiles, because these tiles will replace later with non-asbestos 12 by 12 inch tiles. Okay, so you've done your inspections, and now number 10, we have title and escrow costs. As part of the closing costs on the property, you'll receive a preliminary settlement statement that will outline all of the debits and all the credits to close the deal. It looks just like an accounting spreadsheet, and I'll put an image below. You'll receive credits for the initial deposit, the funds you need to deposit to close the deal, the loan amount, the debits for all of your expenses such as prorated property taxes, closing costs, and title insurance, and some other fees that go along with buying a property. You should estimate 1 to 2% of the purchase price for closing costs. So on a $500,000 purchase, you're looking at $5,000 to $10,000. And these are funds that you'll need to come up with in addition to the deposit and down payment. And most of the time, if you're getting a loan, the lender will require that you have all insurance on the property before you close escrow. So the escrow company will include those costs on the closing statement, requiring you to have more money available. And if there are tenants in place, then some of the rent will need to be paid back to the current owner, which is prorated from the first of the month to the time that you close escrow on the building. Okay, number 11, let's talk about renovations. You want to get great contractors, hopefully only by referral. Now, every renovation will cost more and take longer. So put in a cushion for money and for extended time to get the work done. Now, you have to do renovations with a tenant in mind. So avoid carpeting, which gets filthy. Put in laminate floors. Put in indestructible countertops. Things that won't die and go bad. So if you have to get a new tenant, you don't have to replace them. When I have a renovation done on a property, I need to be there almost every day to supervise, because mistakes happen. And if you find them early, it will be less expensive. So go in the morning to see if people are working. And sometimes contractors spread themselves too thin, and you'll get hurt in the wallet in the long run. And the last step now is to rent it out. So now is the time to find the best tenants you can. Go to Craigslist, which is one of the best places to advertise for a tenant. You can also ask your real estate agent to post it on the local multiple listing service, but word of mouth is the best way to go. So to summarize, when you're buying an investment piece of property, especially 2 or 3 units, you want to make sure you stay unemotional. Use the numbers, because numbers is what matters. Get a competent realtor. Decide on the best strategies to make offers. And get to know your market in depth. If you end up working with a bad real estate agent, you'll get screwed over. And it's more important to pay a fair price instead of a steal on a building. Because when you pay a fair price, you know you're going to end up getting quality. And it's also important maybe to pay a little more for the building if it's in a better area, because you'll have less external factors that could impact the rental opportunities. And when you rent the property out, make sure you take professional pictures that will make the property look great. Respond fast to every single opportunity that comes in, and make sure you do a credit check of every tenant, because you don't want a deadbeat. So I've gone through 12 steps that you should consider when looking at an investment piece of property. So if you follow all these steps, I think it will really help you sort out the process and give you a really, really good opportunity to make the best purchase. And of course, if you like the video, I would appreciate it if you can smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe. And of course, any comments or suggestions about future videos or any questions on this video, please put them below. And until next time, thanks.